President Trump and Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky are set to meet at the White House today. Zelensky announced his trip to the United States shortly after Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin wrapped up their summit in Alaska on Friday. Following that meeting, Trump promised a peace agreement to end the war in Ukraine, dropping his demand for a ceasefire and raising fears he's adopting Putin's position. Trump is, however, offering security guarantees for Ukraine. That's a shift from his earlier position that only Europe should help protect Kyiv after the war. Then last night on Truth Social, Trump ramped up the pressure on Ukraine, putting the onus on Zelensky to end the war. Trump also suggested that Ukraine should not retake the Russian-occupied territory of Crimea, nor should it join NATO, saying some things never change. Zelensky then responded to that in his own social media post, writing in part, quote, "Peace must be lasting, not like it was years ago when Ukraine was forced to give up Crimea and part of our east, part of Donbass, and Putin simply used it as a springboard for a new attack, or when Ukraine was given so-called security guarantees in 1994, but they didn't work." Now, several European and NATO leaders are expected to attend today's meeting here in Washington. It's an attempt to show their support for Ukraine in hopes that this meeting goes better than Zelensky's last visit in February, when he was berated by Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance in that stunning Oval Office session. But today's events follow Friday's summit in Anchorage, Alaska. It was Vladimir Putin's first visit to the United States since 2015. President Trump literally rolled out the red carpet, met him on the tarmac shortly after 10 a.m. local time on Friday. See them there, both leaders shaking hands before stepping onto a raised platform for some pictures. Neither leader responded to questions shouted out by journalists. A remarkable visual then soon followed as Russian President Vladimir Putin loaded into the Beast with President Trump. Both then traveled to the next venue together, side by side there. Reporters were briefly allowed into the room where Putin and Trump would spend the next few hours negotiating. Present on the U.S. side was Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Then, after over 3 hours of discussions, Trump and Putin spoke at a joint press conference. Putin began by referencing Alaska's history with Russia before ending with an invitation for Trump to visit Moscow. President Trump then spoke about what both leaders discussed.
I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them.
So that's the diplomatic backdrop. But today's talks in Washington also come as Russia continues to target civilians in Ukraine. 5 people were killed last night and nearly 20 others were injured when a drone slammed into apartment buildings in Kharkiv. One of those killed was a toddler. In the southern port city of Odessa, Russian drones hit an energy and fuel depot, causing a fire to break out. Russia also launched a missile at an educational facility in the northeast. No casualties were reported in those attacks. Joining us now, NBC News Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, this is going to be a huge day in Washington. All eyes on the White House, as they so often are. But it's not quite clear that Zelensky is going to be receiving the red carpet treatment like Putin did in Alaska. Talk to us about what to expect from today's meetings, what the TikTok is, and what we could see unfold.
Good morning, Allie. So President Trump is someone who very clearly understands the power of an image. And so we have that imagery coming out of the Alaska summit on Friday between Presidents Trump and Putin. And today you're going to have sort of the locked arms imagery of these European allies who are coming to stand alongside Ukrainian President Zelensky. If you're going to have a handshake with Putin, then you're going to have the locked arms of Europe for Zelensky. So what we've been told is that first, President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky are going to sit down and speak one-on-one, as far as we understand. And then they're going to be joined by all of these European allies, NATO allies. And they're really there to send the message that this matters to Europe. This aggression from President Putin is at the doorstep of Europe, and all along there have been concerns that he could try to expand beyond Ukraine, beyond where he has gone so far. And they want to ensure that Ukraine's interests are going to be protected, that lines, territorial lines, are not redrawn by force. That's something we've heard from them. And they want to ensure that there are going to be future security guarantees for Ukraine and for the rest of Europe. And that's something that President Trump seems to be tiptoeing toward being willing to agree to. We heard, in fact, from a special envoy, Steve Witkoff, that Russia, for the first time, agreed to allow the U.S. and Europe to provide what he called NATO-like security guarantees for Ukraine.
Yeah, so we're going to see if those details stick as more of these world leaders get in the room. But I think President Trump's mindset seems to be defensive, frankly. If you look at his social media posts, he doesn't like the way that coverage has said that he didn't come away with a deal, which is just true. He didn't come away with a deal from Putin. And so there are those experts that are saying that Friday's summit in Alaska was a win for the Russian president. It validated him on the world stage after the Biden administration worked so hard to sort of make him a pariah on the world stage. Can you talk about the impact of the optics that we're seeing on the screen here? Was this summit a win for Putin? And how does that inform the way that President Trump could be going into these meetings today?
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly hearing that from Democrats who are slamming the Trump administration's approach, slamming the red carpet treatment in Alaska. Senator Chris Murphy was among those who called it an embarrassment and said that Putin walked away with a photo op with zero commitments made and zero consequences. He said it was a great day for Russia. President Trump did not like that and fired back directly at Chris Murphy, as well as, you know, a host of people for criticizing the way this has gone. But yeah, we do know that coming out of it, President Trump is appearing to look for more of a broader peace deal over the ceasefire that Ukraine and Europe wanted first, but that Russia has denied. President Trump had said that there were going to be severe consequences if Putin said no. And now we've heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio sort of softening that and saying that imposing more sanctions imperils negotiations, could end the talks right now. So this has happened all along, where President Trump has kind of stepped to the edge of a deadline of really leveling something more serious, more sanctions, whatever it may be, against Russia, and then at the last second has not. And it's a question of how long that can continue to go before he really seriously loses face.
Yeah, I do think that's one of the key questions here, because you're also watching the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, on Meet the Press and other programs, sort of saying it's fine if we put a ceasefire to the side for now, if it means that we can just get an immediate peace deal. But that is still a very lofty aspiration, certainly one of the key questions that we'll be asking as we continue to watch today unfold. NBC's Alice Barr setting us up for a very busy day here in Washington. Thank you for coming on.